Okay, so today I am returning to a genre of poems that I like very much. This is another poem about a painting. I love it, it's so wonderfully meta. Art about art. It's almost postmodern, but in ancient Chinese poetry, of course, it was a commonplace. Very common to see poems being written about other forms of art, poems about paintings being obviously the most commonplace of all, and poems being incorporated into paintings were of course also something that it became very big. This one is called奉先刘少府新画山水障歌. So song ge, the form, as you can see, is song form with irregular lines, but it's mostly 7 word lines with interspersions of 5 word lines. And in translation, it's the song for the painted landscape screen of Liu Dan, Sheriff of Fengxian. To be exact, it is the landscape screen that Liu Dan painted. Xinhua, that he newly painted. Liu Shaofu, yes, our translator supplies the personal name for this figure. The historical background here is that this is a period in Du Fu's life where he moved from Chang'an to Fengxian. This is just a year before the rebellion breaks out, before the Great War breaks out. Fengxian is just slightly to the northeast of the capital, this place here. And the context was actually a famine in the capital region because of floods, which are described in the historical literature. And this poem celebrates the artistic genius of his host. This is the poem is very much about an appreciation of genius, and it is so wonderful to see Du Fu, like one great artist, giving his homage to another great artist like this, and to see what a genius feels that a genius is like. And I feel that this is not just interesting from a thematic standpoint, but it is really a great poem as well. So it has this wonderful energy and wonderful diction, and it really makes you feel as if you stand there and see this wonderful art, and you have the feelings that Du Fu has being confronted with the greatness of the artist's inspiration. Probably if we were able to see the actual painting, maybe we wouldn't be that impressed, but it lives on as an immortal piece of art in Du Fu. So let's look at the words of the text. Screen, oh yes, perhaps I should say that. Screen, I suppose, zhang. I suppose this has to be a type of furniture. Like you had these screens that you would use to mark off certain parts of a room, and that he would have painted this screen with his artwork. So they are standing in front of this artwork, and he is amazed, Du Fu. So what does he do? He exclaims, 堂上不合生枫树，怪地江山起烟雾. And already you hear, the song form is here because you have this colloquial rhythm, to the verse. 堂上不合生枫树. It sounds almost, this is almost a sentence in modern Mandarin as well. Maple trees should not be growing in a hall. 不合, yeah, we wouldn't say that in modern Mandarin, obviously, but 不合, it's not suitable, should not, something like that. And then it comes a real Tang colloquialism, this 怪地江山起烟雾. My wonderful edition, it informs me that this di here is, you could say that it corresponds more or less to 和, why, what, and it is actually a contraction of 何等物, what manner of thing, and 怪地 is like 何怪, so strange, how strange. So this is something, of course, that is a little bit hard for us nowadays to really feel the force of this kind of colloquialism, because we don't use this in our regular life. And I think this is sometimes one of the more challenging aspects, actually, of reading poetry, is when suddenly the author breaks out of the strictly classical idiom and throws in something that is colloquial but has since died out. But anyway, that's what commentaries and annotations are for. The 怪地江山起烟雾. Yes, the mountains and rivers are giving off fog and mist. Nothing strange there. And then he explains, how comes? Is there suddenly a maple here in the hall? No, that's not it. 闻君扫却赤线图，诚信遣化沧州去. Here there are a few things we should go into. 闻君扫却赤线图. This 扫却 might seem a bit strange, like wiped away all of the pictures, wiped away all pictures of the heartland. Now, what does this refer to? We have to go into it. Actually, this 赤县, Red County, it's short for 赤县神州, Red Countries and Divine Provinces, something like that. This refers to the areas directly administered from the capital. One guess that is suggested actually by a later scholar whose opinions are incorporated into my edition is that you would expect that an artist who is also an administrator, because it seems like this 少府, his title, the title of the artist, he is some kind of administrator for a region close to the capital. So this is 赤县, and it would be expected that an administrator of an area like that, who was also a painter, would have painted a motive from the general area, a local motif. But he hasn't done that. He has 扫却赤线图. His wiped away. He with his act of painting, he's sort of brushing paintings of his own region to the side and riding on inspiration as on a whim. Stephen Owen says, but like riding on inspiration is basically what it is. Instead, he transports us in painting to the joys or the interest, the zest of Grey Isles. Changzhou, Grey Isles is very, very literal. Changzhou, I don't think it doesn't refer really to a specific place. It's more like the coast, the sea region. We will get more direct indications of the motifs in this painting later on. But the painter paints the things that he can see in his imagination, not the things that are close by. And anyway, that much is clear. Then the rhythm changes a bit. He goes into the five-liners. 画师亦无数，好手不可喻。对此容心神，知今重豪素。The first two lines, I think, are very straightforward. 画师亦无数，好手不可喻. Yeah, a lot of people are painters, but it's difficult to find someone who's really good. But faced with this, heart and spirit fuse with it. Yes, that's something like that. 容心神. 容, as you know, is melt. It often means melt. Heart and mind sort of melt into the scene that is painted. The original meaning of 容 is billows of smoke around a fire. So that kind of billowy feeling, the things that are blur into each other. 容心神. Heart and mind melts into the scene that is painted and fills you with certainty that this gentleman honors, as Owen says, puts great weight on 毫素, brush, hair, and silk. Yes, so this is brush and silk. Back to the 7-word rhythm. 启丹启悦与正前，笔记远过杨启丹. Here we just get a few people. From the context, we understand that all of these names are good painters. It's not super interesting to know what they are. We understand that these are good painters, and this is an even better painter. Anyway, 启悦, from the historical record, we know that 启悦 and 郑乾 were both contemporaries of Du Fu. And 郑乾, actually, we know him from earlier paintings. He was actually a friend of Du Fu as well. But here, Du Fu is treating him, he's putting him in a sort of third rank of painters. Zheng Qian is a good painter, but he doesn't measure up to Yang Qidan or who is in a second rank compared to his host at this point. This is Yang Qidan. Qitan Yang, very interesting name. This is a painter of an earlier epoch, of the Sui dynasty period, and he's said to have been a consummate painter. It's kind of a strange name, this Qitan Yang. Yang Qidan. Qidan is a northern nomadic people, which would become very important later when they would found dynasties on northern China's soil. But Yang Qidan, who was probably of this, came from this group of people, but it's strange why he didn't have another name. 德非玄谱列，吾乃潇湘帆. Back to the 5-word characters. Sorry, the 5-word lines. 玄谱 is one of these mythical mountains of the West, which occur in the Shanhai Jing and others, other types of literature of that kind. A mythical location. Xiaoxiang are rivers in Hunan, the modern-day Hunan, and these are very legendary in art, of course. Xiaoxiang is sort of in the minds of Chinese painters and artists is this romantic location. I mean, you just say Xiaoxiang and you have all kinds of associations to the southern landscape that pop up. So these are symbolic locations you might see with a sort of general signification. The whole structure of the sentence is kind of strange. What does it mean? 玄谱列. Can this not have been ripped from 玄谱? Yeah, I mean, is it not 玄谱 that cracks here? It's almost something like that. So 玄谱, if there are mountains, a verb that is very descriptive of the kind of landscape that is dramatic and mountainous, well, just find a good word for it, find a good verb for it. Well, 列, Du Fu found 列, and it sounds very drastic and distinct, and you feel sort of that in this, almost in this haze of painter inspiration that his heart and mind has melted into. Suddenly, you know, great cracks are ripped up in it from the depths of the ravines of the Xuanpu mountain or something like that. 无奈潇湘帆, fan obviously is more, you can really, you know what this means when water sort of is billowing. That's more straightforward. Yes, it has to be suddenly a little bit of Xuanpu and the rivers Xiao and Xiang are in the living room of this gentleman. 悄然坐我天母下，耳边已似闻清源。天母 is a mountain in the south, Zhejiang, I think, which is beloved by poets. There's a very famous poem by Du Fu about this mountain. And the monkeys is also sort of a classic figure of the south. Kind of strange, this adjective, that Qingyuan, perhaps is the sound of the gibbons that are clear. Yes, that's exactly what Stephen Owen understands it as well. It would be strange to have used this word clear about an animal. because now his heart and mind has melted into the scene, 容心神, it feels like he's sitting below this great mountain. And then comes another really great line here. 反思前夜风雨急，乃是蒲城鬼神入. Okay, this needs to be explained, but it is really a wonderful conceit. Wonderful couplet. What is this Pu Cheng? Pu Cheng is actually the same locality that they're in, Fengxian. It said Fengxian earlier in the title, but Fengxian was originally called Pu Cheng. And then when the emperor Ruizong died, Ruizong was the father and predecessor of the present emperor Xuanzong. When he died, he was buried in this location. And then it was renamed Fengxian, which means something like, honoring the presidents. So this Pu Cheng Gui Shen is probably the spirit of the previous emperor. So you see, even the spirits of the august spirits of the imperial ancestors are attracted by this astonishing work of art. And Du Fu, he stands there and he thinks, oh my God, now I understand it. Yesterday, when all this wind and rain came blowing around here, it was the spirit of the previous emperor, the old emperor, who wanted to come inside here and look at this magnificent work of art. It's like wonderful, isn't it? 反思前夜风雨急，乃是蒲城鬼神入。元气淋漓仗游诗，真在上溯天阴气. And he goes on. 真在, he in charge, a very strange translation. 真在 is sort of a Taoist word. I think it's Taoist at least. It's sort of the true ruler of the universe, almost like Shangbi, something like that. The true ruler, the impersonation of the true objective forces of the universe. The implication here is that the powers of creation, the very powers of creation, which is a privilege of the highest natural forces, they have been usurped by this wonderful painter, and heaven is upset. They look at this, the screen, which still is a little bit moist, sort of just dripping and swirling from the primal vapor. Yeah, this unified original substance of things, a metaphysical substance that is taken place in this work of art that makes the ruler of the universe look for somewhere to lodge an appeal and complain, and heaven is crying at it. Yeah, I mean, this is great poetry. It's just great poetry. Now he goes into explaining what's in the picture. 夜听春环杂花园，渔翁鸣踏孤舟丽. This is not really so difficult language-wise. 春环, spring is returning. We have a pavilion and various flowers are stretching in the distance. And then we have the old fisherman, and it's an evening scene, Ming. So this is all, motif-wise, we know where we are. This is a Chinese landscape painting. It's all the same things in them. 沧浪水深清明阔，凄暗侧倒秋毫末. And this great rhythm goes on. 沧浪, this is actually a true locality. This is a river somewhere, but it has I just say somewhere in the south. It's a river name that has a very long pedigree in poetry. It occurs in the Chu Ci and stuff, and it really oozes just south. The very mention of this locality It's just southern water. We don't need to know exactly where it is. The 沧浪水深清明阔. 清明 is probably, it says blue dark. Yeah, blue dark, but it's probably the sky, I would guess. 清明阔. And then 西岸侧岛. It's a quite strange and rugged formulation, but it's exactly as strange and rugged as the impression in the painting. Sort of banks and islands jostling and piling upon each other in the finest details of the brushwork. 秋毫墨. 秋毫 is like the smallest hair, and on the tip of the smallest hair, these are the very finest details of the brushwork. We can see islands and overhanging banks in the distance. Wonderful. 不见香飞古色时，至今版主临江火. And also almost a cliche, talking about the Xiang Fei, the Xiang goddesses, but here it just works so wonderfully. It just blends in so naturally, and it's not at all cliched the way he introduces them. He says, we cannot see here when the goddesses played the zither, and we have to recapitulate the history a little bit. Of course, these Xiang Fei, they were the consorts of the Emperor Shun, one of the true great mythical sage emperors who ruled who knows when, thousands and thousands of years ago, and who is said to have died on an inspection tour of the south. And when he died, his consorts cried, and their tears spotted the bamboo and gave rise to the typical spotted bamboo of the region. So I can't see in the painting the goddess is playing the zither, but we can see the wonderful the streaked bamboo, the spotted bamboo still growing by the river. Isn't that great? Oh, it's just great. It's just great. 留后天机经，爱化入骨髓. He summarizes it. 留后, 天机. This 天机, here Owen says heaven's workings. It's really, 天机 is his heavenly genius almost, you would say. It's funny, when you read a poem like this, you realize that Du Fu has an idea of genius, of artistic greatness that has to do with being at one with the very powers of creation in nature. This is really something I think that's remarkably similar in China and sort of pagan Europe. If you think of the ideas of Greece and Rome, they had the idea of a genius also taking possession of you and working through you. And the genius, it takes its power from somewhere else. It comes from outside of you. It comes from, it breathes into you. That's what inspiration means. It breathes into you from somewhere else. But every place in nature has a genius, and it's possible to be inspired by anything, but only certain people really do work as the vessels of this genius. It's the impulses that reach certain minds from the very heart of things and makes them into mediums of divine creative power. 留后天机经, sharp. Not just sharp, distilled to its utmost degree of purity. And he loves painting to the marrow of his bones. And Du Fu loves his painting to the marrow of his bones, I would say. Then we get an interesting family picture. 自有两儿郎，挥洒亦无比，大儿聪明道，能天老树颠崖里，小儿心孔开，貌得山僧及童子. So here he goes on, and wonderful, isn't it? I mean, it's just not just we have a wonderful painter here. He has two wonderful painters' sons. And, you know, language-wise, nothing much to say. Huisa, yeah, brandish the brush, something like that. We have to understand, like, huisa yi ubi. One son, two sons, and they have helped out a bit with this great painting. So the older son has painted some trees on on the cliffs, and the younger son, he's able to portray a mountain monk and his boy. His sons are participating in this creation, which is also just a wonderful idea of family life, isn't it? The younger taking over accomplishments from the father. That is just what things are supposed to be like, and certainly according to the Confucian way of looking upon things. And I wouldn't say agree too easily with those who just characterize Du Fu as a Confucian poet, but really, if Confucian poetry is anything, this is Confucian poetry, because here we really see sort of the genius of nature working in two generations of people, and we get to feel a bit of the holiness of that. He finishes. 若也兮云门寺，无独乎未在你子，倾血布袜从此时。It's as if, you know, he's looking at this Shanseng, the mountain monk, and that produces this final exclamation. 若也兮云门寺, Roye Creek and Yunmen Temple, both of these are locations in Zhejiang, which are also famous in poetry, especially this Roye Xi. This is a small river somewhere, yeah, and Yunmen, this is a mountainous area called Yunmen Shan with a temple on it. Why am I only stuck in the mud? You know, often art really puts Du Fu in a kind of religious mood, and his religiousness is basically Taoist. It's something that tells him to leave the ambitions of the world and just be one with the awesome powers of creation. And I think that is actually what he gets his awesome powers of creation for. This Nizi is really metaphorical. You understand that he's not lying in mud, the literal mud, looking at this painting. He is in the mud because he is such a superficial and comparatively dead character compared to the wonderful genius that he sees at work, the wonderful creative power that he sees at work in this work of art. Of course, we know that he is the greater artist of them, because I mean his art is the one that has survived. But Nizi here is the mud and mire, the mud and mire of the spiritual mud and mire. It's something that he feels he should be liberated from, and can be liberated from, if he just chooses another path. If he chooses the path of contemplation and art that he can see in this wonderful painting. And then he says, 倾血布袜. From nowadays, it's shoes of grass and homespun stockings. Exactly what this refers to, where it comes from, I don't know. But from that it is some kind of ascetic ideal, that is at least clear. So here we have it. A wonderful, semi-longish, song-type poem with a lot of really memorable lines, a wonderful flowing rhythm through it all, and really masterful 10 out of 10 performance, I think, from Du Fu. And really one that it's his kind of art about art poetry at its finest. So thank you for listening to this, and see you next time. Bye bye.